Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. From seniors and teachers to businesses, those left out of BC's latest budget are critical.
Is that all? We are really frustrated about it.
What they're hoping for, plus a nearly 11% tax hike to people in Vancouver.
I know increases like this are hard. Frankly, they suck.
We break down why this is happening in other cities too, and a $55 million winner right here in BC.
So everybody's talking about today, and I'm answering everybody's question.
Where someone is about to get a big check.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. We begin tonight with breaking news. Search and rescue crews as well as the RCMP have dispatched near Panorama Mountain Resort after a reported avalanche. The resort is located just southwest of Invermere. We are still waiting for more details from authorities, but we do know this has already been an extremely deadly avalanche season. We'll bring you the latest throughout this show as we get more information. Well, the province is doling out a lot of money, but there are many groups feeling left out of the budget, including BC's seniors. As Michelle Gassoub reports, advocates say the province is ignoring the reality of our aging population.
In BC's 182-page budget, the word seniors appears just 5 times. Advocates wondering why they weren't a priority.
It's hard to have a reaction for what's in it for seniors when we're thinking about this year's budget, because the answer is almost nothing at all.
The budget does allocate some funds for capital projects, including $431 million for 2 new long-term care homes in Vancouver and on Vancouver Island, around 600 new beds in total that should be ready by 2027. But BC Senior Advocate says focus shouldn't be on long-term care beds, but on ensuring people can live at home as long as possible.
The alternative to that is that they move to long-term care, which is very, very expensive. It costs about $85,000 a year to support somebody in long-term care, and the government pays about $60,000 of that each year.
Just last week, Mackenzie called on the province to scrap fees on home supports for seniors, a move Ontario and Alberta have already taken.
But to me, it would be a no-brainer to invest more now in home support services, because sometimes it just takes a few little things for someone to be able to stay, as opposed to be having to go where we don't want them to be in an expensive long-term care beds.
Advocates also calling for more rental support for low-income seniors and new funding to subsidize dentures, eyeglasses, and equipment like wheelchairs, money that would help keep people out of care.
Humanely, if you ask anyone with grandparent family, older parents, we don't want to see our grandparents go to institutional care. We want to see couples stay together, and we want to see them at home where we feel in our hearts that they belong.
Currently, 1 in 5 British Columbians is over the age of 65. By 2033, that number will be 1 in 4. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, seniors aren't the only ones feeling left out. Yasmin Renea is finding out small businesses were hoping to see a lot more support.
This Vancouver bakery owner is disappointed.
When we see yesterday that all the budget goes to some other places, but not any part of it to the small and medium business, it was really frustrating.
The $80 billion budget includes a host of new spending measures and tax credits to renters and families.
This budget provides new targeted supports for people hardest hit by increased costs.
But business groups say it was a missed opportunity to provide cost relief to business owners.
We're a little bit surprised that there wasn't more in there for small business to support them, to help underpin them or bolster them in the challenges that they're facing now and what's going to be coming down the pike at them.
Groups say money should have gone towards reducing the overall tax burden, dealing with labor shortages, and addressing the cost of doing business. Albertas Dermas agrees, especially as he struggles to cope with the inflationary costs hitting his shop.
The wholesale prices are going up, 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 up. Every week we see like 2 to 3% of wholesale price increases.
Making matters worse is that property taxes in Vancouver will jump by nearly 11% this year. He's raised his prices at the bakery, but can't keep hiking them.
Because we are scared. We don't want to lose our customers. So we are just squeezed in between.
BC's budget does mention existing tax credits that businesses can access. The government also says it will spend more than $400 million over the next 3 years as part of a plan to close labor supply gaps. But Tasderma says it won't help him in the short term.
We need something, we need it now, not like for after 2 years, 3 years.
Under the new budget, BC plans to run deficits over the next few years. Yasmin Raneya, CBC News, Vancouver.
And so far this year has not been a good one for financial security in Canada, with a number of insolvencies increasing by more than 33% in January compared to that time last year. This means that Canadians are increasingly unable to pay their debts and are filing for assistance. The Office of the Superintendent of Bankruptcy also reported that business insolvencies increased by almost 40% compared to last year. While the numbers correlate to the country as a whole, this expert says that British Columbians are facing exceptional challenges.
What we're seeing now is that British Columbians specifically, they're spending nearly all of their monthly income just to live. So they have less money left over to make their debt payments. So everything's kind of coming to a head right now, and they're realizing that they have to do something more permanent to deal with their debts.
Rising interest rates, inflation, and living expenses are all heightening insolvency rates in this province. Well, British Columbia is set to become the first in Canada to make prescription contraception free for all residents. That includes birth control pills and IUDs. As Lindsay Duncombe explains, starting April 1st, the provincial government will be picking up the bill.
At the University of British Columbia, questions about new birth control funding generate genuine joy.
We were watching, we were like, I wonder what they're asking. Yeah. And then you said it was about the birth control. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. I think it's great. I think it's really sending a great message and setting a good example for the rest of the provinces. It just seems like an important step in being in control of our own bodies.
The BC government will spend $119 million over 3 years to cover prescription contraception. That's the pill, IUDs, implants, and the morning after pill. Coverage offered in just a handful of countries around the world. This family physician was part of the campaign to convince politicians to pay up. She says many of her patients don't get the contraception of their choice because of cost.
Inflation and the rising cost of living, affordability is an issue for everybody right now.
Someone on the pill can expect to save $25 a month. And the government is likely coming out ahead financially, too, saving tens of millions of dollars in costs associated with unintended pregnancy and abortion. So there's a fiscal argument and a political one, too.
All too often, these fundamental rights are under attack, but not here in BC.
The National Society of Obstetricians and Gynecologists wants to see contraception funded across the country.
If you can prevent unwanted pregnancies and therefore the cost, both physical and emotional, not just even the health costs to abortion, that's a great benefit.
There are similar campaigns to fund birth control in New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Ontario, and Manitoba. Here in British Columbia, even the opposition isn't opposing the plan. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
And we'll have more about BC's move to foot the bill on prescription contraception coming up later in the show with a live interview. Okay, beyond BC's provincial budget, the city of Vancouver passed something pretty big last night. It's pushing a record high tax increase this century even higher. Justin McElroy, of course, paying close attention to it all and joins us live. Justin, a bit of a surprise here, eh?
Yeah, well, the provincial government was putting forward their budget on Tuesday. Mayor Ken Sim on Tuesday morning held a press conference and said what was going to be a 9.7% property tax increase in their own budget was going to go up to 10.7%. He said they searched for efficiencies, couldn't find them in this budget, and said it was important to fund core things that matter to his party, but he understood that some voters wouldn't like it.
Now, I know increases like this are hard. Frankly, they suck. We completely understand that. Nobody likes property tax increases. However, leadership in government sometimes means making incredibly hard choices.
And to understand just how big this increase is, we'll take a look at this chart over the past decade or so, going from 2 to 3% per year, up to 5 to 7% in the Kennedy-Stewart years, to 10.7 this time around. And if you're wondering, well, where is that money going to? Well, the extra 1% that Sim put forward in the series of amendments by councillor, $4 million towards Vancouver Fire Rescue Services, money for things like grass and plant maintenance, fixing potholes, Vancouver Public Library. The biggest increase, of course, going to the Vancouver Police Department, just south of $40 million extra to their budget this year. Overall, this is going to cost the average homeowner somewhere between $300 and $500 extra when it comes to seeing their property tax bill this year.
Yeah, a lot of money for sure, Justin, but this is happening in many cities, not just Vancouver, not just Surrey. Why?
Yeah, plenty of places with 7, 8, 9, 10, or even more % increase in their bills this year. There's a few reasons. One of them is inflation, of course. Another one is city governments trying to do some of the things that they put on hold over the course of the pandemic, in some cases infrastructure maintenance. And a big one, there was an election 4 months ago, and there's a heck of a lot of new mayors and new councillors that got elected promising to do things and now feel the pressure to deliver, like ABC Vancouver in the city of Vancouver. So, there are 160 municipalities in BC. Not all are going to be equal, but you can expect that you'll probably pay more this year in your increase for the property tax bill than you did in previous ones.
All right, Justin McElroy live with us tonight. Thank you. Well, more money is coming from the federal government for health care. BC and Ottawa have reached a $27 billion funding agreement.
Having the federal government as a strong partner with an agreement in principle that we're announcing today means that we're able to ensure stable, secure funding going forward. Another $6 billion to stabilize healthcare in our province, and more than $3 billion over 10 years for targeted funding in priority areas where we agree with the federal government.
The announcement was made at the Kwantlen Polytechnic University, where the Premier and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau met with nursing students. Some of the new funding will go to expanding access to family doctors, reducing backlogs, and supporting healthcare workers. One of the items to come out of the agreement is the collection of data on the healthcare system.
Another element of our plan is asking provinces and territories to improve how we recognize foreign credentials for health professionals.
Today, along with BC, Saskatchewan also signed up to the federal health care funding agreement. That leaves only Quebec and the territories that have yet to do so. Well, someone who was in North Saanich on Vancouver Island is lucky. I would say very lucky. They bought a Lotto Max ticket that will give them the biggest lottery payout ever on Vancouver Island, and it's all anyone is talking about.
Yes, everybody. So literally every single customer, even the one who doesn't, that they forgot to buy it, they still talk about it.
The person who won the $55 million Lotto Max purchased their ticket from one of just 3 stores selling Lotto Max in North Saanich. The location of the vendor is not released until the prize is claimed. According to the Lottery Corporation, the winning ticket, with all 7 numbers matching Tuesday's draw, has yet to be claimed. Well, Kuljeet, I hope you paid a visit to Saanich recently.
I really wish I had, Anita. You have no idea. But I wonder, like the person that has won this lottery ticket now, do they know and they're taking their time figuring out what they're going to do with the money, or they've lost the ticket?
I think there's a little bit of research into that shows that people do actually tend to wait because their life is about to change. Everybody else finds out.
Yep.
It gets a little crazy, right?
Here comes those family and friends lining up at the front door, right?
No kidding.
Lots of warnings and watches issued today across the province. We'll start off on northern BC for the Cassiar Mountains. About 20 centimeters of snow expected tonight into tomorrow. And for the north coast, snow there as well. 30 centimeters expected by tomorrow. And along the central coast, on top of the snow warning, comes a wind warning with wind up to 100 kilometers an hour. later on tonight. And for us here, we're going to see a little bit more snow for the Tri-Cities and higher elevations, about 5 to 10 centimeters through Hope and Whistler. Warnings have also been issued for the Sea to Sky Highway and the Coquihalla Highway as well. Current temperatures right now across the Lower Mainland, 4 degrees and holding steady at the airport, 2 degrees for Pitt Meadows, and on the North Shore, 3 degrees out in Abbotsford, and on the island, 3 degrees in Nanaimo as well. Some stats for today. Today's high way above average, below average, I should say. 4 degrees was today's high. This is backwards. That's why I'm getting confused. For the lows, we're sitting at a pretty decent average right now. We are going to get wind in the Lower Mainland as well, along the water up to 70 kilometers an hour, and still very humid today, Anita. I'll get into more details about the snow that's coming and what the 7-day looks like.
We'll talk to you later. Thanks, Kuljeet. A 5-year investigation into money laundering in our province has concluded with a special prosecutor declining to lay charges. Special prosecutor Christopher Considine has cleared accused loan shark Paul King Jin on 8 recommended charges because there wasn't enough evidence that the large sums of money moving between Jin's clients were the result of unlawful activity. You can read more on the BCPS's decision on our website. BC's aging 911 emergency communication system is getting a $150 million upgrade. The province is allocating the funding to Next Generation 911, an initiative that allows users the choice to contact emergency services via text. That's important for callers with disabilities or those facing domestic abuse. It provides first responders with critical information like caller location, and if someone wants, it can be completely confidential.
What this does is take into account the different ways in which people now try and reach 911. We see a decline, for example, in number of people who use landlines and the significant increase in cell service.
The provincial funding will help offset expenses on local governments to assure BC-wide upgrades. Current and former police officers in Nelson could be disciplined after an investigation by Vancouver police. It centers around messages sent on a chat group. Dan Burrett joins us live with more on this. Dan, take us through the background here.
Anita, last February, an investigation was ordered into the conduct of 8 former and current Nelson police officers. They had allegedly exchanged inappropriate messages and memes over a WhatsApp group chat, including the use of racist language. Today, Nelson Police says both current and retired members facing allegations of discreditable conduct have had these allegations substantiated. 2 serving officers have been cleared of any wrongdoing. The rest could now submit information to defend themselves. The Nelson department is small, just 20 or so officers. The department says it and its board have been working hard to build bridges with diverse community members. Now, former Solicitor General and West Van Police Chief Cash Heed says these allegations are concerning for the police board and that small community. And if they are substantiated,
what is key here is going to be on the discipline that's given to these officers. Is it going to be enough to deter activity not only within the Nelson Police Department, but will it deter activity in other police officers that are sworn to protect communities in British Columbia? That's the important factor here.
the department says the findings announced today should not reflect or paint a negative picture of the force as a whole. Anita.
Dan Barrett live tonight. Thank you. There's a new exhibit coming to Science World. Skin, Living Armor, Evolving Identity opens this Friday. It looks into the many facets of one of the largest organs of most organisms. Caroline Chan got a sneak peek.
This is a traveling exhibition. It comes from the California Academy of Sciences. It's brought to us by the Science Museum of Minnesota. It's been about a week-long install here, but it was a very long development process for them, just looking across the whole animal kingdom and also looking at the human, the social aspects of skin color. Across the animal kingdom, it's incredible the different types of skin you'll find. It's like in amphibians, you have skin that you can actually draw moisture through. They'll drink through their skin. For fish, it's covered in a layer of mucus, so that provides an extra layer of protection. So there's such diverse skin out there, the different things it can do in terms of healing. There's even lizards that can glide with their skin. Wonderful diversity you can find across the animal kingdom. So there's different samples of animal skins you can feel, you can look, you can touch. There's the idea of skin as an environment itself. So we actually have samples on microscopes that you can look at some of the parasites that live on your skin. But also, I think, from an internal, a thought and a reflection point of view. I think when you look at the human pigment and culture section, just looking at how something as simple as a change in skin tone has affected how we interact, how we create these categories, and what we can do to make things better moving forward. This is one of my favorites. It's looking at the sensitivity of your fingertips. So you need a little bit of bravery here. These are dark boxes that you want to stick your hand in without knowing what's going on, and see if you can feel and detect what is inside there. I think I've got it. But then if you take your hand away, it will allow the other senses to come into play, and it turns on a little light to show you what you are actually feeling there. It's something you don't tend to think about a lot, your skin, but it is a living interface between you and the world around you.
Advocates are celebrating BC's big birth control breakthrough. More on the province's move to provide free contraception after the break with a Surrey teen who campaigned to make it happen. Thanks for joining our commercial-free live stream. Edmonton-based photographers David Aaron and Doug Cowan realized their city was rapidly developing and started using their cameras to capture change, from the buildings to cultural events and even a ski jump. Take a look.
I just started taking photographs regularly of the city for memories to cherish. I realized that what I was doing wasn't recording history. I'm recording change. And there's the Strand Theatre that you took a picture of. I met Doug Cowan one day, and he came over with all these Ektachrome slides. And when I saw what he had photographed, I realized that he had very special photographs. On the left-hand side, we have the Dreamland, and the exact same spot is the conference center. Here, Doug has this beautiful picture from 1966, and one of the most beautiful buildings, the old Royal Bank of Canada. Nobody talks about this building, and by 1968, this is what's going up. So you can really see the change in the history of Edmonton.
I had a Viewmaster for Christmas when I was a young boy, and you put those round reels in. Once I got the money and started working at Woodward's, I bought a Yashica twin lens reflex, and I started to photograph downtown Edmonton, anything on 101st Street. And there's a picture in David's latest book of Woodward's taken at Christmas time in 1964. In those days, the Christmas decorations spanned the street from one side to the other. They were magnificent.
This is the old city incinerator in Gallagher Park. You can see the old ski jump that went right over Connors Hill there.
The plan was to record as much of Edmonton as I could, and of course the trolley buses fascinated me, and they became a prime subject.
My plan is to continue to offer photographs to people of Edmonton and to continue to make more books for people to really see the past of their city and how beautiful it used to be and still is.
More now on the free contraception coming to BC April 1st. It's part of the province's latest budget, and the move is being applauded by many, including Surrey High School student Sophie Chung, who joins us live. Sophie, you've been campaigning for this to happen for some time with Access BC. How does it feel to see the change?
Yeah, it's incredibly exciting.
We're so happy to see BC become a beacon of hope, really, for reproductive justice across Canada, and we hope to see that momentum continue in other provinces.
You mentioned their reproductive justice. Can you explain to people what that means?
Of course. So reproductive justice is about medical autonomy. It's about medical equity. So that means making it so that people have to pay, ideally no cost, everyone has equal access to medical services, and that certain people aren't facing the same more disproportionate barriers to accessing those services than others.
At 16 years old, why is this so important to you?
Yeah, so as a young person, I know that young people are disproportionately impacted by barriers to reproductive services, such as health, because so many young people have to seek their parental approval to buy contraception, which fortunately is not a reality in British Columbia anymore. That can lead to increased health outcomes associated with unintended pregnancy and other medical conditions that are regulated by contraception.
Well, you're very well versed on the subject, so I can see how well your lobbying went with the government. Is there anything missing from BC's policy here?
Yeah, so there are some details that we're still hoping to see sorted out, and we hope that those will be coming later in the spring. One of the big ones is seeing how access points will be set up for people who live in rural areas to access contraception. The government has mentioned they're hoping to be able to expand the scope of what pharmacists do, so helping them prescribe contraception to people rather than just getting it from their other medical service provider. And that's something that is incredibly important, as location is also an incredible barrier to accessing contraception.
Beyond contraception, there's been a long time push for free period products. High school students in particular actually have been pushing for this. Are you hoping that's next?
Yes, of course. I hope that all forms of healthcare will be free eventually in BC. Contraception is only the next step in that. And of course, menstrual products, I hope, will be soon after. Because contraception is often used to regulate medical conditions associated with menstruation, including PCOS and endometriosis, it's really a natural progression to making menstrual products free for everyone.
16-year-old Sophie Chung helped lobby the government to bring free contraception to BC. Thank you so much for joining us live tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pressure is growing for a public inquiry into allegations of foreign interference in Canadian elections. That story still to come.
With its sandy beaches and its crashing surf, its bald eagles and its gray whales, Clayoquot Sound on the west coast of Vancouver Island is an area of great beauty. But what makes it more, what makes it a battleground of interests, are the magnificent old-growth forests, trees that have never been cut, and the bald hillsides where they have been.
Breaks your heart to see it. It looks like a desert. I don't think that some areas on Vancouver Island will ever recover.
There are only a handful of uncut watersheds in Clayoquot Sound. Within days, the provincial government is expected to announce how much more will be cut, how much will be preserved. And local communities are at war. On one side, the loggers.
There's absolutely no justification in this world to stop all forestry in Clayoquot Sound.
And on the other side, the environmentalists.
Clayoquot Sound is a gem. Once it's gone, it will never be replaced.
But this province was built on logging. Forest products are worth $11 billion a year. They generate every fifth job. But as the timber runs low, those jobs are threatened. Timber companies are planting new trees, but it will be decades before the regrowth can support the industry. That's why the loggers need the old-growth forest that the environmentalists are determined to protect.
To me, if the decision came down to completely preserve Clayoquot Valley, it would be tragic. It would be the end of the life as you know it on the West Coast.
90% of the world's
because
ancient
forestry is so
forests
important to the
outside
province's
CIS have been
economic
destroyed.
well-being, it is vulnerable to international
WWF
boycott.
argues that governments and industry must take urgent steps to
And
conserve
around the
these
world,
priceless
environmental
remnants
groups
of
are
ancient
gearing up
forests.
for action with
The
videos.
The effects of clear cutting here are devastating. 1,000 years of history can be lost within seconds.
They've placed ads ads in the New York Times that refer to BC's flagrantly destructive logging practices, and there are visits and lobbying by the likes of Robert Kennedy Jr.
If there was a major ecosystem like the Grand Canyon or Yosemite Park that was going to be destroyed in the United States, we would hope that government officials and environmentalists from British Columbia would come to the United States and help us fight it.
And BC environmentalists are taking the message abroad. Garth Lentz, photographer, is taking his slideshow of clear cuts to Great Britain and Germany. Will he recommend a boycott?
I would say if you feel strongly about the way forests are managed, if you don't want to support the desecration of some of the last great forests of the planet, yes, don't purchase your wood from Canada or BC.
For the NDP, it's a no-win situation. The government is expected to try to resolve this battle over Clayoquot Sound with compromise. Some trees logged, some left. But that means fewer trees cut than the industry says it needs, and fewer left than environmentalists are willing to allow. And both they and Labour may well carry their disillusionment into the next election. Eve Savory, CBC News, Clayoquot Sound.
We're learning more now about an avalanche in the BC interior. BC Emergency Health Services say they were called just before noon today to an avalanche near Panorama Mountain Resort. They have confirmed 4 people have been taken to hospital. No word at this point on their condition. Now, a spokesperson for Panorama Mountain Resort says the avalanche occurred outside of its boundaries, but it did close some of its upper lifts in order to support rescue personnel. Forecasters say this year's snowpack, with its weak layer of sugar-like crystals buried near the bottom, is to blame for the dangerous conditions. Well, pressure is building for the federal government to call a public inquiry into allegations of Chinese interference in Canadian elections. In a search for answers, several people were grilled by MPs today on Parliament Hill, including the Prime Minister's National Security Advisor. Ashley Burke takes us through the testimony.
Jody Thomas normally advises the Prime Minister on matters of national security behind closed doors. But now she's facing questions in public about foreign meddling in Canadian elections.
The greatest foreign interference threat to Canada comes from the People's Republic of China.
MPs demanded to know why the government hasn't done more to stop it.
What this scandal is about is what the Prime Minister knows about this interference, when he first learned about it, and what he did about it or failed to do about it.
There have been serious intelligence leaks and explosive reports about attempts by Beijing to interfere in the 2019 and 2021 elections.
We're not prepared to validate any of the reporting that's been in the media or the alleged leaks.
The unlawful sharing of information and the inappropriate sharing of information, I believe, jeopardizes our national security.
The Globe and Mail reported that secret CSIS intelligence reports showed Beijing encouraged sympathetic donors in Canada to give money to favored candidates, then helped them recoup their money.
The allegations are criminal in nature. If there are violations that took place of the Canada Elections Act, these are serious, serious allegations.
Officials today revealed the RCMP isn't investigating that or any other allegations of interference tied to the last election.
They have looked at that information and have concluded that they will not pursue a criminal investigation.
Despite that, the calls continue to grow for a public inquiry.
We can't simply bury it behind closed doors and have it in secret while Canadians are left in the dark, potentially with another election interfered in before the results of the commission come out.
But the Prime Minister still won't commit.
We have been taking this issue extraordinarily seriously.
That's Ashley Burke reporting from Ottawa tonight. Moving on now, 2 women will be taking on Soccer Canada's top 2 jobs. This comes after President Nick Bontis resigned earlier this week after coming under fire. Olympian Charmaine Crooks has been promoted to interim president, and new to the governing body is Kelly Brown as acting vice president. Crooks and Brown take on these titles as Soccer Canada faces the ongoing labor battle with the women's and men's teams. The women want the same backing ahead of their World Cup this summer as the men did before Qatar. The fight over how the pandemic started is heating up yet again. This time, it's being sparked by comments by a high-ranking U.S. official. But as Chris Reyes shows us, there's also concern this debate is taking the focus away from preventing a future public health crisis.
That the COVID-19 pandemic may have originated from a lab leak in China isn't a new theory. But the FBI director adding his weight behind it in a Fox News interview is.
The FBI has for quite some time now assessed that the origins of the pandemic are most likely a potential lab incident.
His comments come after a new report from the U.S. Energy Department that reached the same conclusion, though with low confidence.
The circumstantial case for a lab origin has only grown, and I think not just the FBI, but really the world is coming around to what some of us have believed for many years.
Now a biting reaction from China's foreign ministry. Spokesperson Mao Ning says the U.S. intelligence community has no credibility because of what she calls a record of fraud and deception, and urges the U.S. to stop politicizing the issue of traceability. From the White House.
Not everyone in the intelligence community or across the government necessarily has come to a consensus view here on how it started.
The public health community expressing concerns, the back and forth on the virus's origin theories, whether lab leak or animal to human transmission, takes away from the real issue, preventing the next pandemic.
The longer we go, the more it's going to be very difficult to go back to the scene of the crime, if you will, and figure out and unravel what happened.
Others say another real problem, the search for truth, is one-sided.
We don't have an answer now because China has prevented an investigation.
A point that's also contested, one of the many after nearly 3 years without consensus or conclusive answers on how it all started. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
The president of Belarus has arrived in Beijing for a state visit. He's had a long, tight relationship with China, but he's also had one with Russia. As Briar Stewart explains, the trip is being watched for hints of China's engagement in Russia's war with Ukraine.
China rolled out the pomp and ceremony for a state visit from the Belarusian president Alexander Lukashenko. I'm happy to see my old friend, proclaimed China's President Xi Jinping. The visit comes as Belarus finds itself increasingly scorned and sanctioned by the West for allowing Russia to use its territory to stage troops and mount attacks against Ukraine. Today's meeting is taking place at a very difficult time that requires new, unconventional approaches, said Lukashenko. China has called for an end to the fighting in Ukraine, but isn't publicly pressuring Russia to withdraw. Still, the U.S. is concerned Beijing could send Russia weapons.
It can't be putting forward peace proposals on the one hand, while actually feeding the flames of the fire that Russia has started with the other hand.
The U.S. Secretary of State repeated those warnings during his first visit to Central Asia. He met with officials from former Soviet states with close ties to Russia and China.
I think that Secretary Blinken wants to convey the message to the 5 countries of Central Asia that Russia is not a reliable partner.
This analyst says all countries are seeking to shore up alliances. While helping to open a new metro line, Russia's president reminded the crowd China's leader has promised to pay Moscow a visit soon. China may talk about its no-limits friendship with Russia, but that's hard to maintain.
The longer the war goes on, the harder it's going to get for China to straddle this balance. And I think that we're already starting to see the tensions. The tensions are now becoming more prominent. They're becoming more pronounced.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine is expected to dominate discussion at the G20, which gets underway in India Thursday. But the U.S. Secretary of State says he has no plans to hold individual meetings with either China or Russia. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
It's been a slow, simmering issue for months, but the stream of asylum seekers entering Quebec is poised to boil over, with many landing in communities they didn't plan on. and ones that may be ill-equipped to help them. That story is next.
"100 years ago, downtown Vancouver hosted Magic Man Harry Houdini, a 3-day whirlwind event that included a death-defying public stunt. Let's retrace his steps. Houdini was a world-famous escape artist, so visiting Vancouver, a city which was very small at the time, was a big deal. Today, this is Pacific Centre Mall, but a century ago, it was the old Orpheum Theatre, later renamed the Lyric. Each day, he performed a matinee and evening show here. And to drum up excitement, Houdini also hosted a public escape. This block used to be home to the old Vancouver Sun office building. In 1923, Houdini was tied up in a straitjacket and hung upside down from a wooden post 30 feet above the ground. There, he freed himself in front of a crowd of around 10,000 people. Hungry spectators that could be turned into paying customers. If he was around today, magic historians say Houdini would be known as a master of social media, because the guy knew how to promote himself.
Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaff is away tonight, so Kuljeet, you are fielding all of the questions about when we are going to get more snow.
Yeah, that is the only question that I've been getting asked pretty much all day. We do have a Pacific frontal system making its way down the south coast and across central coast, so lots of precipitation on its way. But for Metro Vancouver, it's just going to be mostly rainy conditions. We will get some snow at higher elevations, about 5 centimeters on the North Shore Tri-Cities, a little bit more up towards Squamish and Whistler, and of course out towards Hope as well. So the Sea to Sky and the Coquihalla Highway all have warnings in effect. By about Wednesday, so it's already started, light rain outside right now, and by about Thursday morning, it will start to dissipate. You might see some flakes with a bit of rain in Vancouver tomorrow, but very unlikely. Snowfall forecast looking like this across the province. Like I said, by about noon tomorrow, this is all clear for Vancouver and Delta and Richmond as well. The snow sticking in Abbotsford and Chilliwack and for the higher elevations, but it won't stick around for very long. It will be a quick melt after that. Across the province, pretty cold still with wind chill temperatures in Fort Nelson at -16, -15 in Dease Lake, -14 in Smithers. Still pretty cold in Prince George as well. Tomorrow, we are going to see 1 degree in Prince George, mostly cloudy conditions, a 40% chance of snow happening there. A few flakes for Williams Lake and -3, 0 up in Dease Lake, a bit of sunshine. And like I said, wet along the coast for Prince Rupert and Port Hardy as well. For us, the 7-day forecast rolls out like this. Rain for Thursday and Friday. We might see some sunshine in the morning for Thursday and Friday. Rain to kick off the weekend. Sunny skies for Sunday. And for Monday, the rain returns. Now, the temperature's holding steady at around 8 degrees, getting back to the average for this time of year. So right now, it's feeling very cold. By the weekend, it will warm up. Anita?
Yeah, 8 is pleasant for now. Thanks, Kuljeet. Well, tens of thousands of asylum seekers have been entering Quebec at an illegal border crossing in the last year. But as Joanna Remiliotis shows us, now the pressure is on to move them along out of the province to communities that are not prepared to welcome them.
It doesn't stop, even in the dead of night in a snowstorm. People keep turning up at Roxham Road, at least 100 every day. But for most, the road to refuge doesn't end here anymore.
Once you cross, okay, you cannot go back again.
Roxham Road is an irregular border crossing between New York and Quebec. Just ask them why they're here.
¿Por qué están aquí ustedes?
Por el conflicto armado.
This family from Colombia tells us they're running from armed conflict back home.
Hasta luego. Gracias.
They're relieved to have made it. But like thousands before them, they will be moved along.
The people you just saw who got on that bus are being taken now to a processing center a few kilometers away. From there, they'll be taken to a local hotel. They'll stay for a couple of days maybe, but then they're going to be put on buses and they're going to be sent to other provinces because Quebec says it cannot handle any more people coming here seeking asylum.
In the last year, roughly 39,000 people have crossed here into Quebec. Many are Francophone and hope to stay. But the latest arrivals don't have that option and don't choose where they go next. The communities they're ending up in haven't had much choice either.
The federal government wants to transport people all over the country. In Ontario, the majority are being sent to Niagara Falls, where we're heading now. As a tourist hotspot, the city has a ton of hotels, and Ottawa has reserved nearly 2,000 rooms there.
The federal government is paying for rooms and meals. On average, asylum seekers spend 60 days in hotels while they wait for work permits and are entitled to medical and social assistance. Not far from one of them, we meet Mohammed. He's too afraid to disclose more of his identity because he says he fled Central Africa fearful for his life. Mohammed was given an ID bracelet when he arrived at Roxham Road a couple of weeks ago. Shortly after, he was put on a bus to Niagara Falls. He says he didn't have a choice, doesn't speak English, and has no idea how to start building a life here.
I'm going to give him my extra hat.
As he shivers in the only warm clothes he owns, we give him mittens and a hat. Mohammed is just one of the thousands here unsure of his road ahead. In a place that is also reeling with a spiraling homelessness and opioid crisis.
Hi, how are you?
Mayor Jim Diodati has been taken aback by the rate of new arrivals and the needs that come with them.
It went from 87 rooms to 300 rooms, then it went to 687 rooms, then it went to 1,500 rooms, then they said 1,700 and 2,000 is next. So we said, well, where are we going with this? I mean, how big is this going to get?
Diodati says the city has had to absorb $5 million in costs to deliver social services to asylum seekers. And once tourist season begins, hotels will be in demand, so will the money they generate. And the question is, where can asylum seekers go then?
Where are they going to go after? How are they going to be supported in this city? Do you have enough affordable housing? Do you have enough kind of resources to support them?
A lot of them are trying to plant roots in our community, and we don't have the housing stock. We have a shortage. And we actually, as a matter of fact, we just declared it the region of Niagara. It's an emergency. It's an opioid, homeless, affordability emergency in our community. And we know we're not unique. This is all over Canada and around the world. It's like we're getting hit from all angles, and now we bring in thousands more people.
The lack of preparedness has left other communities pushing back too. Since Quebec closed its doors, 1,400 asylum seekers have come through Cornwall alone. 800 people are still here at this hotel and at another hotel on the other side of town. The city says it gets little to no warning about when the next busload of asylum seekers will arrive, and it says it's really struggling to support their needs.
I'm Joanna, nice to meet you.
Justin Towndale is the mayor of Cornwall. He's exhausted after weeks of being constantly caught off guard.
We're not aware of when buses are arriving. We're not sure what country these individuals are from, what languages they speak.
How hard is it for you to manage the people who have arrived, who continue to arrive?
It adds another layer of unpredictability, because there's a lot of agencies that want to help, but they don't know how to help yet, and when they're getting caught off guard by people showing up on their doors and they haven't planned for it, like food banks especially, they haven't allocated enough meals for that day, or other charities where they may have some clothing available, winter clothing, they have to plan for all this.
As hotels keep filling up, the city and community groups met with federal immigration officials last weekend, demanding better communication and support going forward.
Cornwall wants to help. We're a very generous community, we're a caring community, and we want to do what we can, but we need the resources to do it. It's the asylum claimants that suffer at the end. They're left in limbo with nowhere to go, nothing to do, and no way forward. As our costs mount and the pressures on our systems mount, we can't continue this.
Meantime, community groups are doing what they can to provide the basics and helping families enroll kids in schools, open bank accounts, and apply for work permits. Sonia Belil is with ACFO, a group that helps settle newcomers.
Do you have any concerns about being able to help people who are coming in still?
Definitely. We're very close to our community, so that's a reality. We know that resources are limited. Ça arrive souvent, malheureusement.
ACFO is trying to find people jobs too and ended up hiring Esperancine Desardouin and her husband Philippe. Desardouin worked as an aid worker in Haiti before the violence drove her family out.
Seeing firsthand the success of the program and seeing people establishing themselves with their families, and it makes that all that more special.
Desardouin was bused here after crossing at Roxham Road 4 months ago. She had hoped to stay in Quebec, but is grateful to now be working for the same group that helped her.
Is that important to you to feel like you're working and being part of the community?
Yes, it is very important for me because I have to give back when I receive. We feel we have now a good life.
It's a good life that so many like her are hoping to find. She and her family are settling into a new home filled with donations from the community.
All these furniture from ACFO and also from my church. Yes,
for the first time in a long time, she says the future feels safer too.
What does it do for you, for your family, to be here now and to have your own home?
Yes, for all the family, you can see in my face my emotion, how I feel to have a townhouse. So I feel very, very good. I feel...
It's peace though, right?
It's peace. I feel peace in my heart. I feel love. I feel good.
Many Canadians would consider her a national treasure, but singer-songwriter Joni Mitchell is getting a special commendation south of the border. We'll take you to the star-studded celebration in Washington, D.C. next.
here with Krista Letty, and she's going to teach us how to finger weave.
This method is how we make the iconic Métis sash. So our however many great-grandparents, this is how they made that piece of Métis identity, and it's so special because you could even tell where people were from based on the colors and patterns in their sash.
Oh, nice.
But it was also an important tool at that time as well. So we're going to switch the threads over and under alternately. So I'm going to take one of the red ones that's on the bottom, and I'm just going to flip it up like this. And I'm going to take a white one and just kind of keep it down like that. And you just keep doing this pattern until you run out of thread. Okay, now this is the fun part.
Okay, here we go.
You're going to grab either side, give it a tug. So now we're going to take our second stick, and we're just going to put that right there in the middle. And we're just going to tape the ends of the sticks. So this is basically like the supports on your loom. Now we need to tape it to the table. We're going to set our hands so the top threads, which are going to be the white ones, stick on the top like that. And the bottom ones, we're going to put down like that. We're actually going to take the thread that's most on the right. So we're just going to take that and put it up there, and you can see it's sandwiched in between the layers. I'm going to grab the bottom one and bring it up, and I'm going to grab a white one with the bottom fingers. Just keep doing that pattern. So bringing the bottom thread up and the top thread down. So now this one here is going to rejoin the ones. So it's white, so it's going to go back with the white ones.
Perfect.
And this is the super fun part, and then we're going to pop it. All right, so then we reload our hand. So now those red threads that were at the bottom have moved to the top. So the white one, yeah, up, and the red one down. And we just keep doing that process.
Over and over.
Over and over and over, yeah. You're at the point now where we're going to finish it.
All right.
We're going to take the two threads that are most on the left. Now, we're just going to do an easy, simple little knot. With my thumbs and my fingers, I'm just twisting those threads. We are going to start wrapping them in the opposite direction. So you have to switch them from hand to hand. And if you do it right, when you let go, it should stay twisted. Ta-da!
We did it.
And then to finish it off, all I do is again an overhand knot. So I just pretend this is one string.
Okay.
Just do an overhand knot.
That was a lot of fun. Krista showed us how to make this finger weave.
And really not bad for your first time.
And if you want to make one of your own at home, it's not that hard, and I learned a lot along the way. John Zazula, CBC News, Edmonton.
It's a big night for Canadian music. The legendary Joni Mitchell is being recognized in Washington, D.C. with a prestigious Lifetime Achievement Award. And as Katie Simpson shows us, it's an historic night in what's already a storied career.
The way a Joni Mitchell song can make the hairs on your arm stand straight up, even when she's not the one singing it, is a testament to her brilliance. It's why Annie Lennox and so many of the world's most talented artists came to Washington, D.C. for a red carpet gala and concert to honor Joni Mitchell's career as the winner of this year's Library of Congress Gershwin Prize for Popular Song.
Ms. Mitchell, how does tonight feel for you tonight?
It's exciting. It really is.
She may be humble about her impact. Those she paved the way for see it differently.
Now I'm a proud disciple of a really powerful woman that changed the world. She changed the world for singer-songwriters.
What is the impact of Joni Mitchell's musical career?
Everything for me, everything. I wouldn't be standing here as a singer-songwriter if I hadn't heard Joni's music and been aware of her great artistry. I mean, she's exceptional.
Mitchell was in her early 20s when she wrote some of her most popular music, her perspective resonating with audiences in the late 60s and early 70s. I've looked at clouds from Words that have only become more powerful with the passage of time. Now 79 years old, Mitchell rarely makes public appearances.
I really don't know life at all.
Last year's surprise performance at a folk festival in Rhode Island left her co-stars in tears and the crowd blown away.
Did the world just stop? Oh, Carrie, get out, you can't.
And that is why this celebration in Washington is such a special event.
Don't it always seem to go?
A chance for artists to try to return the favor and leave Joni Mitchell herself in awe of her own music. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
It's been 3 years of COVID cancellations, but now one of the world's largest Vaisakhi parades is returning to the streets of Surrey. The Surrey Khalsa Day Vaisakhi parade draws crowds of more than 500,000 along the route. The procession will feature more than 2,500 participants from many community organizations. The Vaisakhi event is an important one in the Sikh calendar, and organizers are excited to bring communities back together to celebrate at the Nagar Kirtan.
It's landed with a lot of excitement across the world, actually, just because it's such a significant event. So bringing it back into that space where it's available for people to interact with, again, after 3 years is quite exciting.
The Surrey Khalsa Day Vaisakhi parade will take place on Saturday, April 22nd. Yeah, if you haven't had a chance to go in the past, you should check it out this time. The food is incredible. It's all along the parade route. The colors are amazing, and it really is a good time for the family. That is CBC Vancouver News tonight. Thank you for being with us, and have a wonderful evening.